Hello, my dear student friends. In this class, we are going to look into post independence Indian English poetry. I'm sure by now you have acquainted yourself with pre independence Indian English poetry. In this class, these are the learning objectives. The first one is to acquaint you with the influence of social, political, and economic changes on post independence Indian English poetry. As you understand, after independence, India underwent huge changes so far as its political, economic, and social matters are concerned. How these matters affected Indian English poetry is first objective of this lesson. The second objective is to trace how the Indian English poetry transferred itself from mere imitation and romanticism into maturity. As you know, pre independence Indian English poetry was too much influenced by the British and American poets. It was mere imitation of those poets. Moreover, the pre independence Indian English poets indulged themselves into romanticism, but this will undergo a dramatic change in post independence Indian English poetry. The third objective of this session is to introduce well known post independence Indian English poets and their works. So, the post independence Indian English poets are many in number, and some of them have made marvelous achievements. So, about them and their works, we are going to study in this session. By the end of this session, you should be able to understand the impact of social, political, and economic changes on Indian English literature in general and poetry in particular. You should be able to understand how the Indian English poetry achieved the maturity that can be compared with the British and American poets. And you should be able to acquaint yourself with major Indian English poets. So here we go. Post independence Indian English poetry. As you know, Indian English poetry has a history of over 200 years. The earlier books of verse by Indians, though in a translation, came into light in 1825. As you know, the first ever Indian English poet was Henry Derozio, the son of Indo-Portuguese father. You should understand here that Henry Derozio is considered as the father of Indian English poetry. Derozio has written two volumes of poetry. The first one is called Poems, published in 1827, and the second one is Fakir of Jangira, a metrical tale and other poems, published in 1828. So these works of Derozio shows a strong influence of British Romantic poets in theme. Though his poetry displays the influence of English Romantic poets, his themes are unmistakably Indian, and the spirit that runs all through his poems is certainly that of India. Post independence Indian English poetry has witnessed the most crucial developments ever since. It is now a genre to which even the English readers look with curiosity. It marks a decisive break with the tradition established so far by pre independence poets through the thematic and technical innovations. You should understand here how different the post independence English poetry is. It is different in terms of the thematic and technical innovations. This is important. Thematic and technical innovations. After independence, Indian English poetry took a fresh turn. The era of aspiration and certitude was gone. An urge of merciless self scrutiny, questioning, and ironic exposure commenced. Please understand here, this comment is by Sri M.K. Naik. So, M.K. Naik sir says that, you know, an era of merciless self scrutiny, questioning, and ironic exposure commenced. So, post independence English poetry, okay, you can notice, a sense of alienation in them, merciless scrutiny of the self in them, questioning everything you can be found in the poetry of the new poets. The post independence poets writing in English have greater self confidence and found themselves in line with modern British and American poets. Again, this is interesting. See, when India got independence, okay, a lot of changes in terms of politics, in terms of society, in terms of economy. So all these things, one led to the other, and the new poets, they are found themselves. They found themselves with a lot of confidence, and they are in line with modern British and American poets. So, post independence English poetry is an era of challenges and changes. So, this point we shall discuss elaborately in this presentation. So, how this post independence Indian English poetry is an era of challenges and changes. As you know, with the attainment of independence on 15th August 1947 began a new era that is full of changes and, of course, challenges. So, what were the changes? What were the challenges? Let's look into them briefly before we actually go into the post independence poetry. Well, as you know, in the political sphere, the first traumatic experience was that of partition. As you know, the country was divided into two countries, India and Pakistan. This came at a huge cost. This division is responsible for over 6 lakh deaths and 8.5 million people became refugees. Can there be a more traumatic experience than this? The most traumatic experience, the biggest challenge in the post independence era is partition of the country. There was a great challenge of unifying over 500 princely states, which otherwise would have plunged the country into political chaos. However, thanks to Sardar Patel, who effected their integration with the Union mostly by persuasion and wherever necessary, even by force. So many princely states in India, 500 of them, they were not willing to be a part of India. They wanted to come out as an independent country. So it was on the efforts of Sri Vallabhbhai Patel who unified all these princely states into the country. See, you can see some images, and these images are the reflection of some traumatic experiences that took place soon after India achieved independence. You can see the train there, people traveling from one country to the other, and you must remember a famous book by Khushwant Singh, Train to Pakistan, that is based on partition. So, some of other challenges include the question of integration of other small foreign possessions in India was also solved by negotiations in the case of French settlements and by direct action in the case of Portuguese Goa. So, some settlements were still in the control of foreigners. So, those cases, those settlements were solved by persuasion, by negotiations, and in case of Portuguese Goa, it was by force. India got it annexed into the country. Many other princely states across central and north India, like Hyderabad, Jammu and Kashmir, Junagadh, were integrated with the Union. So you can see the political map of India. this was again divided based on linguistic. The country was divided in terms of language. You can see some 15 in 1956. Okay. So, three brief but eventful wars were fought during this period. The encounter with China in 1962 and the wars with Pakistan in 1965 and 1971. The latter resulted in the dismemberment of Pakistan and the creation of Bangladesh. I think you know it very well, historical things. Three wars were fought, brief but very eventful. Two wars against Pakistan, the latter in 1971, created a new country, that is Bangladesh. With the death of Jawaharlal Nehru in 1964, an age appeared to have ended. The other important events include declaration of emergency in 1975 and the resurgence of democratic forces in the election of 1977. So all these are political changes, and you can just have a look at this picture that depicts the scenes in the war, and also a beautiful dam that is part of a 5-year plan. The sweeping changes in the political and economical spheres were matched by the virtual transformation in social scene. Traditional social inequalities were sought to be removed by progressive measures such as the Untouchability Offences Act of 1955. So please do remember this. Some societal changes took place with the political support. An act was brought into force in 1955. The act was Untouchability Offences Act. So the purpose of this act was to bring equality among the citizens of the country. So again, you can have a look at this picture. At the center, you will see Acharya Vinoba Bhave, who tirelessly worked for the cause of landless peasants. India went through a vast and lengthy social revolution soon after independence. The influence of these remarkable changes have definitely impacted the Indian English writing, and particularly the poetry and the fiction. So all these major events definitely affected the Indian English poetry and fiction as well. Post independence English poetry underwent dramatic changes. Changes in the political, social, and economic life influenced the poetry written during this period. Indian English poets dethroned the imitative and romantic approach of the past and gained greater self confidence, wider vision, and sharpened faculty of self scrutiny. So, this is very important here. So, all these changes in political and social life of the country, they had a long-term impact on Indian English poetry. The poets' approach now is different from their predecessors. So, the new poets had wider vision and they sharpened their faculty of self scrutiny. So, with this brief, we are going to end this talk, and just as a part of recap, I would like to ask you a few questions. Try to answer them. Who is considered as the first Indian English poet? Tagore, Torudutt, Henry Desrosiers, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. Keep your answer to yourself. Now we shall move on to the second question. As you know, the answer is C. Who led the unification of India from the princely and foreign ruled states in India? Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, Krishna Menon. Yes, the right answer is A, that is Sardar Patel. Now let's move on to the third question. Who among the following is considered as the pioneer of modern Indian English poetry? Yes, Nissim Ezekiel, of course. Who is the founder of Writers Workshop at Calcutta? This is Purushottam Lal. He is popularly known as P. Lal. Who was when was the emergency imposed in India? 1975. So these are the references. You can just try if you could get these books and do some self-study. So with these notes, we shall conclude this session, and we shall go to the next session, wherein I'm going to introduce you to some of the finest poets after India achieved independence. Thank you.